The Phantom Archives of Edgar the Architect, and Schale by Gen Kagami. Volume 3. Veneto. The Water Mirror of Nirvana. The Brion Cemetery. Untethered from the concept of time, the genius architect Edgar and the pearl-haired youth Schale wander through eternity, retaining their youthful, exquisite forms. Across eras, they traverse the world's renowned architectural works and the maddening constructs Edgar himself once assembled. This is a tranquil, decadent journey through phantom architecture, dissecting space, light, gravity, and the anomalies lurking within through cold, unflinching logic. 1. The tumult of the living, the silence of the dead. The wipers listlessly brushed away the raindrops striking the windshield. The rural roads of the Veneto region, Italy, were sandwiched between endless cornfields and a low-hanging leaden sky, creating the illusion of driving toward the very edge of the world. Only the low thrum of the engine of the vintage Fiat Edgar piloted resonated through the damp interior of the car. "Hey, Edgar, that meal just now, it was truly exquisite, wasn't it?" Schale, in the passenger seat, leaned forward and spoke with a flush of excitement. From his soft, off-white knit sweater, there drifted the faint scent of rain and the sweet aroma of the restaurant they had just departed. "That's squid ink risotto!" I was startled by how pitch black it was, but it tasted of the ocean floor. And the tiramisu for dessert. The mascarpone was so light and airy, I felt I could eat it forever. Schale's eyes sparkled like a child's as he pointed to his own mouth. A small dark trace of squid ink still lingered at the corner of his lips. Edgar cast a fleeting glance toward Schale before returning his gaze to the sodden asphalt ahead. "To think you can devour life with such greed, even as we head toward a cemetery," Edgar remarked, his voice as dry and chill as a tweed jacket. "But delicious things are delicious. Besides, visiting a grave is something only the living can do with any vigour, isn't it?" "Where we go is no such sentimental place. It is a fortress of death, wrought in concrete by Carlo Scarpa." Edgar turned the wheel. The car veered off the paved road, tyres crunching over gravel as it glided into a parking area behind a small church. Upon alighting, they found themselves still within this world. Preceding the private burial grounds of the Brion family lay the communal cemetery of the village. Between miscellaneous headstones adorned with colourful silk flowers and raw, vivid photographs, a few elderly women moved to and fro. "Oh look, Maria's plot has weeds growing again. Honestly, what are her sons thinking?" The old women chattered vibrantly in Italian, scrubbing stones with brushes or tilting watering cans. What resided there was not the solemnity of death, but a humid, everyday landscape, an extension of life itself. "It's rather lively. It's not frightening here at all," Schale noted, casting a friendly gaze toward the women. "Come, Schale, this is merely a thoroughfare." Paying no heed to the clamour of the living, Edgar pressed into the depths of the communal cemetery. Where the hodgepodge of headstones ended, a strange concrete wall appeared, rising in stark isolation from the surrounding scenery. It stood like a barrier, a kekai, signifying that beyond this point, the realm was governed by an entirely different logic. Edgar placed his hand upon the iron door of an inconspicuous rear entrance set into the wall. "Once we pass through here, the voices of the old women will no longer reach us. Are you prepared, Schale?" Edgar pushed the door open. In that instant, the density of the damp air shifted, and all sound was sucked out of the world. 2. The nirvana of concrete. The moment the iron doors swung shut with a heavy thud behind them, the presence of the living was utterly severed from the world. Neither the scratching of brushes nor the cheerful lilt of Italian from beyond the wall reached their ears. Only the sound of rain sliding down concrete channels reverberated like a persistent tinnitus. The air is entirely different. It's so quiet it feels almost an intrusion to draw breath, Schale whispered, gripping the soft cuffs of his knit sleeves as he surveyed his surroundings. Spreading beneath the grey sky were the green of the lawn and the geometric forms of concrete, ziggurat-like stepped motifs, islets floating upon water basins, and dull gleaming brass ornaments. They sat enthroned in the rain, cold yet possessed of an overwhelming beauty. It is only natural to hold your breath. This is a gargantuan specimen box, designed by Carlo Scarpa to incorporate even his own death, Edgar said, looking down at the mosaic tiles adorning the edge of a water basin with glacial eyes. Observe Schale. Here, Scarpa sought to redesign the absolute void of death into an eternal rest nirvana, using concrete and water. He took the raw fact of flesh rotting and returning to the earth, and embalmed it with perfect detail. Edgar traced the concrete wall with his finger, his touch carrying a resonance of merciless conviction. The beautiful arrogance peculiar to architects. A man who feared death while simultaneously being enthralled by it, sought to bring the phenomenon of death under his own control. But such a deception cannot be permitted to stand. 3. The temptation of the double circles. The two threaded through labyrinthine passages and arrived at the site that served as the very icon of this cemetery. A massive window pierced through a thick concrete wall, two overlapping circles forming a vesica piscis. The overlapping sections were bordered with mosaic tiles of blue and pink respectively. Oh, how lovely. It's as if a blue circle and a pink one are holding hands. Schale drew closer to the window as if pulled by an invisible thread, a symbol of Scarpa and his wife. A romantic motif of two souls mingling eternally beyond life and death. However, Schale, I wouldn't peer through that window for too long. Schale heard Edgar's quiet warning as if it were a distant murmur. He placed both hands upon the cold concrete frame and peered through the double circles. The scenery framed by the window looked, for some reason, entirely different from the actual garden they had been walking through. Though the rain should have been falling, there were no traces of raindrops in the view beyond. The lawn that should have swayed in the wind and the shadows of the concrete remained in a state of absolute stasis, as if preserved in golden resin. Hey Edgar, in that world over there, time seems to be dead. Charles' tone dropped an octave. That world is two in one. They never part, and they never change. One wouldn't have to lose anything. It wouldn't even burn out. Schale's pupils began to dilate slowly. His consciousness began to tilt away from the cold rain of the present, where Edgar stood, toward the beautifully designed silence of death, unfolding beyond the window. 4. Aelan of the Water Mirror. It is coming, Schale. The architecture has begun to dream of us. Edgar's voice rang out, quiet, yet saturated with certainty. As if on cue, time within the Brion cemetery began to warp. Schale drifted away from the double circle window, treading like a somnambulist toward the wooden meditation pavilion floating upon the water basin. Though the rain was intensifying, not a single ripple disturbed the surface of the basin. The scenery beneath the water's surface was perfectly still, glowing with a golden hue. Exquisite. I feel as though I've been searching for this place forever. Sinking down onto the edge of the pavilion, Schale slowly leaned his body toward the water. The moment his hand brushed the surface, his fingertips became transparent, beginning to dissolve into the water. His flesh was being converted into a part of the beautiful water mirror Scarpa had designed. Schale, get away! That water is no mirror. It is the threshold to the farther shore. Edgar seized Schale's shoulder with force, but the sensation made him shudder. It was not the usual soft touch of the knit sweater. It was a lifeless hardness and cold, as if he were clutching a frozen stone statue. Edgar, it hurts. Let me go now. Schale looked up at Edgar with eyes that were rapturous yet hollow. Over there, no one pulls at me. I feel that he is waiting there too. That single phrase vividly resurrected in Edgar's mind the memory of the clockwork flame that had once sought to incinerate him. This time, a cold coffin of the water mirror was attempting to snatch him away forever. Edgar's reason splintered. No! Do not go to such a place! Do not leave me alone! Heedless of appearances, Edgar gathered Schale's half-dissolved body into his arms, attempting to haul him back to the world of the living by sheer force. And into the ear of the Schale, who was on the verge of total submersion, he screamed the forbidden name he was supposed to have sealed away. Come back, Alan! It was a pathetic, soulful shriek that tore through the sound of the rain. 5. The Light of the Living. With a heavy splashing sound, the two bodies collapsed onto the concrete floor. At the name Alan, Schale's body convulsed violently, as if his very soul had been struck directly in its depths. Edgar, his hands trembling, rubbed the back of the coughing Schale as he spat out muddy water from his lungs. Before they knew it, the torrential rain had ceased as if it had been a lie. Through a rift in the clouds, sunlight poured in with a violent brilliance, illuminating the dull concrete in stark white. Looking up, a massive rainbow described a perfect semicircle in the sky beyond the cornfields. It was so vivid that it seemed to overwrite this garden, which had aestheticized death with the raw light of reality. Schale stared vacantly at the rainbow with unfocused eyes. Colour was slowly returning to his cheeks. Edgar? Just now, what did you call me? Edgar did not answer. Only, in the eyes glimpsed through the gaps of his wet fringe, there swirled deep remorse, relief, and an unfathomable terror. Steadying his ragged breath, he turned his gaze away from the rainbow-streaked sky and spoke in a chilled voice. A hallucination, an illusion wrought by the sound of the rain. Come, Schale. The humidity here was too high. It is poison for your temperament. Edgar began to walk toward the exit without looking back once. Left behind, Schale gazed at the water basin, which had returned to being mere water, reflecting the light, and once tightly gripped his own chest. There remained the sharp, searing pain in his heart he had felt the moment Edgar called him back, embracing a silence deeper than ever before, and a truth that must never be touched. The two walked beneath the rainbow, the symbol of life, and departed the garden of death that was far too beautiful. End of Volume 3.